And we are back. We are back. Yes, it has been a very long time. And I am so sorry for that. I got lazy, let's be honest. But that's enough about that. As you can see, we are going to be talking about one of the most exciting parts of the NBA season, even more exciting at times than the actual NBA finals. We are going to be talking about NBA free agency. We are also going to be talking on the trades that have most recently happened before the draft, during the draft, after the draft. Only the big key ones that I really find the most interesting. And then we are also going to talk about a little bit of NFL news to start off with it today. We are going to talk about Jalen Ramsey being traded to the Steelers and why I think it's a very silly kind of deal that got made. But all in total, we'll hit on a little bit of everything. Thank you so much for being here. I suppose we should start off with the NFL news since this is primarily an NFL channel, or it was. Jalen Ramsey, this morning, the news had broke that he was traded to the Steelers. Now, if you know who Jalen Ramsey is, obviously was big time guy with the Rams, was currently on the Dolphins, and things are heating up. Things are not going great in Miami at the current moment. And it was figured that something like this would happen, whether it was Tyreek Hill being moved off of him, or if it was going to be um, Jalen Ramsey, or if it was going to be both. It was kind of we were kind of just all waiting for it, and now we finally have the answer. Though some people are not as happy about the answer as you would imagine. Now, if I just said Jalen Ramsey to the Steelers, really solid, good trade for the Steelers. I know the cornerback room was pretty set. You had Darius Slay, you have those other guys in there right now, but adding a piece like Jalen Ramsey doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt. Excuse me. It doesn't hurt to add another piece. But then something very interesting happened. Kind of about 10 minutes later, it was revealed that Minka Fitzpatrick would be the player that was getting swapped. So not only are you, I guess you would say, bolstering a room that was already pretty decent, the quarterback room, but now you've just made your safety room significantly worse, just entirely worse. Minka now goes to the Dolphins, and Jalen Ramsey will get a $1.5 million pay raise to go to the Steelers. And then there's a couple sevens that are getting thrown around. They're not important though. Um, I would say that this is not a good trade at all for the Steelers. I don't understand kind of what they're doing with this, but I think just all around, most people, especially Steeler fans, are in just complete agreement. This was not a great move, not by a long shot. But that was the NFL news going around today. It was kind of underlining. I didn't really see it much on TV today. Um, I got alerts for it, and there's so many people calling it a blockbuster trade. It's not. If anything, it's more of a blockbuster for the fact that it's Minka Fitzpatrick, because Jalen Ramsey has been kind of so while during his time in Miami. He's not the powerhouse corner that he was before when he was with LA. It's the main reason why they moved off of him. But yeah, so kind of blew under the radar for a little bit. Really only getting discussed on ESPN, CBS Sports, Spoke Track updated it. Um, Kind of just only a couple places were really discussing it. Not breaking news. I'm sure it'll be part of the news cycle later on, though. Once we get closer to the NFL season, it'll be brought up again. But with that out of the way, now it's time to turn our attention to basketball in its entirety. Sorry about that. Um, Now it's time to turn our attention to basketball entirely. Congratulations, first of all, to the Oklahoma City Thunder for winning the NBA championship. We have not talked about that whatsoever, so congratulations to them. Just get that out of the way. And now I don't care. Now we are in a new season, new era. We're moving on. We are getting ready, gearing up for free agency. It is currently the 30th of June, which means that quote unquote legal NBA contract free agent discussions can begin at around 3 p.m., which is when I would like to have this uploaded. If not, maybe just a little bit later. I'm shooting for that 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock Western, 6 o'clock Eastern is the time that the discussions will begin. And then, of course, no unofficial deals can be struck until tomorrow, which is the 1st. And then once that begins, tomorrow will be the day where we start hearing the actual, like, oh, Miles Turner signing here, Brooke Lopez signing in this place. Like, that's when we'll start to hear those deals become more finalized. But until then, it's going to be all rumors for the rest of today and the rest of tonight. Maybe once it hits into 12 Eastern, we might start getting. We probably will get like a couple deals going on, but probably the major ones won't start hitting until about mid-morning tomorrow. That's what I'm assuming. I also am enjoying a drink with this as well. Just a very chill, relaxed kind of discussion that we're going to have today. All right. Now, since we are talking about primarily free agency, I figured we should start off with free agency. And I had jotted down a couple of different notes for either specific players that I wanted to talk about or for specific free agents that I want to talk about. And the first one that I have to begrudgingly say is that it is looking more and more like Gary Payton II will not be rejoining with the Golden State Warriors. Now, for some of you, you're like, who the hell cares? I don't care. Move on. Talk about somebody else. And I'm taking my moment of Warriors fandom to express my concern about this. According to reporting that was done by Monty Poole, from a source close to him, it was stated that Gary Payton II's return is seemingly doubtful due to the Kuminga situation and how that whole thing was starting to transpire. 1 second. But with the growing concerns of Jonathan Kuminga and what the Warriors will plan to do with him, essentially, because Jonathan Kuminga is a restricted free agent. It is unclear at this moment if they're going to be doing some sort of sign and trade with him, if they're just going to let him walk, if they're going to retain him. So while certain pieces and things are moving right now, it is becoming more doubtful, probably due to the amount of money that Jonathan Kuminga might make, that he could make a return. Now, I don't think Jonathan Kuminga is going to be making 35, 40 million. I don't think anybody's going to be offering him that unless something ridiculous happens. Maybe one team does, but there's no way. There's no way. There's no market for it. So what's more than likely to happen, in my personal opinion, is the sign and trade is trying to be done. Something probably in like the $25 million range is what I imagine. Where to, I'm unsure, but obviously Jonathan Kuminga has expressed how unhappy he is with the Warriors situation. The Warriors have more than expressed that they are increasingly frustrated with Jonathan Kuminga and how it's not. I don't know necessarily if it's the fact that he hasn't just bought into the system or if it's because he is just a player that does not fit the system. He wants to go get his own. which I respect and which is good to have multiple different variances on one team. However, that's never really been how the Warriors operate. The Warriors operate in a sort of this is your role, you will do your role to the best of your ability kind of team, and not necessarily a team that's like, oh, this person is a hyper slasher. This person sits in the dunker spot and just waits their turn. This person primarily only runs the pick and roll. Things like that. So that was the first bit of information I wanted to talk about. Not to mention the fact that also people like Kevon Looney are still currently are becoming a free agent this offseason. And Pat Spencer of mild playoff fame had it was announced that they were not going to accept whatever they had to retain him, so he is now also a free agent. Could he return? I would not be. Well, I would. I would not be surprised, but you could tell me he was on the team next year or he's not off the team next year. I honestly would not be so shocked either way. The other thing that was brought up yesterday on the 29th is that DeAndre Ayton is finalizing a buyout with the Portland Trailblazers to become a free agent ahead of this free agency class. Now, this would kind of put DeAndre Ayton in, I would assume, top 10 free agents that are available right now. Still a really solid 10 and 10 guy, 13 and 10 guy. He's just never lived up to those years, that year with Chris Paul when they made that finals run. He made all this money going to Portland. He's only played about 71 games for them. And that's kind of been it for him. He's just been really solid. Just either 16 points a game and 11 rebounds, or 13 points a game and 10 rebounds. He's just a very qualified center. Now, obviously, of course, now that there is another center entering the free agency pool, every Lakers fan in the world has laid claim to DeAndre Ayton, which, I mean, if he's not going to ask for $20 million, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers were the best offer that he receives, because that is what they desperately need. But otherwise, if he is out looking, I don't know what in particular DeAndre Ayton is looking for, whether he wants to go compete for a contender and take less money, or if he wants to go get one more bag. Though it seems that it was mutually agreed upon that DeAndre and Portland wanted to go separate ways. So best of luck to DeAndre Ayton, and more than likely, it's not like DeAndre Ayton's going to be a free agent by the time next season starts. He will get signed. Somebody will pick him up. He'll be just okay. We already discussed free agency negotiations begin later on. And here, okay, so here's what I wanted to talk about. This is kind of a really lower tier free agency, in my personal opinion, where the kind of jewel of the class this year is Miles Turner, who obviously just was part of this huge playoff run with Indiana, miracle run, until the very end, Game 7, when Tyrese has the Achilles injury. Though Miles Turner did not have a particularly great final series in general, I do think his value is the highest in the entirety of the class, especially when this class is consistent of a lot of role players and a lot of bench guys, a lot of pieces that are going to shuffle around for new one-year deals. Like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, what's his name? Dennis Schroeder, guys like that. Brooke Lopez is probably going to get like another 1-year deal. It's just a large majority of older guys from anywhere from like 28 to like 34 that are going to be looking for a new deal somewhere just to get back onto a team. These are guys that are also probably going to be part of the trade discussion at the deadline as well. Moving off of these guys, shifting them around. It is what it is. But there are some big names that I do want to talk about that are in this free agency class. Like Brooke Lopez, who I mentioned earlier, is the player with the highest annual value going out, average annual value going into free agency, according to Spot Track. Um, at about like 24 million, I believe is what it was. So Brooke Lopez is the highest paid player coming into the free agency class. It kind of shows that this isn't a super star-studded class that's going to be there. It's a bunch of guys, a bunch of big guys like Brooke, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, Al Horford, guys that are going to be looking for another deal to just keep their careers going, I would imagine. I'm sure Chris Paul would love to come back to the Spurs, but I think considering the fact that they have Fox and all of the moves that they've been making, I think they're looking to move on from Chris Paul, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Paul went back to Charlotte or New Orleans to finish out his career. Now, obviously, Chris Paul probably wants the ring, although he does like his mentorship role. I couldn't tell you in the slightest where Chris Paul is going. Um, Russell Westbrook. I would be flabbergasted, like abhorrently surprised in every facet of the word if Russell Westbrook was not back on the Denver Nuggets next year. Now, obviously, for the right price. I don't expect Russell Westbrook to be coming back on like a 3-year, $30 million deal. You just can't. But I think he likes it there. And I think that it works the best for him working alongside Jokic and having such a dynamic passer that believes in him. You've seen all the TikToks, all the videos of Jokic just giving it to Russell Westbrook wide open outside the 3-point line. It does not matter if he's missed like the last 6. He will still feed him that play because he sees him open. I think Russell Westbrook must stay in Denver. I think people like him there. I think he can make himself a nice little home there for the remainder of his career. That's just all I can imagine. Now, Al Horford, who I had also mentioned earlier, Al Horford is a very interesting case. Coming off of a season where you obviously don't get back to the NBA Finals, it wasn't his fault. I mean, Al Horford is still balling out there. He's still an incredible stretch 5. Big, strong. He can just do it all. I wouldn't be surprised at all if after Miles Turner, Al Horford got the second big maybe DeAndre Ayton. But you could convince me that Al Horford gets a top 5 contract as far as value and money in this free agency class. I think he's still a really dependable player. Can still be a 5th guy or a 6th guy on a championship team, especially if they're as loaded as the Celtics were. That's kind of the role that I think he would play best in. If he went to a team that just needed a center, a really nice stretch 5 center, or if they needed a excellent guy off the bench to make a deep playoff push, I think Al Horford's your guy. And I just can't imagine anybody. I can't imagine a whole lot of players in this free agency class getting more of a bag than Al Horford. Like, obviously, if you want to count the Kyrie Irving re-sign into that, fine. If you want to also put in the James Harden re-sign, fine. And then the Fred Fred VanVleet contract extension, fine. You want to add those all extensions into it, that would probably put him at like 6. Anywhere from the 6 to 8 range. That's why I said top 10. But I really just don't imagine a world where Al Horford is not one of the most sought after people in this free agency class. And then kind of looking into some of the restricted free agents of the class, I have 4 big names. I have Cam Thomas, I have Josh Giddey, I have Trey Mann, and Jonathan Kuminga. Now, I would not be surprised at all if Josh Giddey and Trey Mann stayed put, and those teams, like if the Bulls just decided it doesn't matter what you pay Josh Giddey, we're going to keep him. I would not be surprised about that at all. Though for Cam Thomas and for Jonathan Kuminga, I think these two are like the biggest players that you could see in a potential sign and trade. Cam Thomas, obviously, he's been shopped for like 2 years at this point. You can't get to a deadline in the NBA now without people being like, oh, you should trade for Cam Thomas. Oh, this team is just one Cam Thomas away. It's like, especially with the log jam that Brooklyn has done in the draft with their 5 first-round picks, picking 4 guards and and then a wing. I just can't imagine he stays there, especially considering the fact that Brooklyn had also traded for, I believe it was Terrence Mann. Let me see. Yeah, they also acquired Terrence Mann in the draft. So you drafted 4 guards. You brought Terrence Mann. You have Cam Thomas. There's too many guards. So and he's my number 1, by the way. He's my number 1 for the potential sign and trade possibility. Now, where to, I'm not sure. That's not for me to decide. I'm just the guy just speaking into the microphone. But there just doesn't seem to be a world. Well, here's the thing, too. I think they would I don't think they would let him go. Because I think they're too smart for that. For laugh all you want, the Brooklyn Nets do a lot of like front office things really, really well, except for drafting. It's like the one thing they can't do. So, if you were to just tell me that all these teams are offering for Cam Thomas, why wouldn't Brooklyn pick up the restricted tag, keep him, and then just trade him away? I mean, it only makes sense. Or if the teams aren't even going to bother, they're just going to call Brooklyn. It's like, well, we want to pay him this much. And it's like, all right, we'll offer it to Cam. And then just sign and trade. You can only do good things with this. I don't think they're going to keep him. I don't think they're going to keep Cam Thomas. It just wouldn't make sense. Because what are you going to do with all the guys logjam behind you unless you're deciding to stash some of those away in Europe? Which potentially you could. One of the guards is from Israel. You might keep him in Israel to go play out there still. But that doesn't make sense at all. Why? I guess you're in the mid-20s picks. Either way. I'm just getting into a tangent on that. I don't know. It's got me a little fired up. Speaking of fired up, the other person I think is more than likely going to be signed and traded is Jonathan Kuminga. As a Warriors fan, this is probably what I want to see. Not that I don't appreciate Jonathan Kuminga. I have no ill will towards the man. In fact, I hope he goes somewhere good so we get a lot of pieces back. Selfish of me to say, I understand. It's just how I feel. Jonathan Kuminga, to me, is somebody that I always see when he plays. And he does one thing, and I'm so excited. He just does one crazy drive to the lane, and he just slams it down, or he's on the Draymond Green alley-oops back in the early days when he first kind of got there. And I'm just so excited. I'm like, this is a great player. This is a player that could become great, can fit in, move us towards the future. And he just never is. Because the entire rest of the game, I don't notice him. Or if I do notice him, it's not for great reasons. He wanted to bet on himself. He did that. And I think it actually made the Warriors hate him more. Now, I don't know if they hate him. Like, Steve is not, he's not in Steve's good favor. I can tell you that right now. For the sole fact that they were like, we're not playing him until Jimmy Butler got hurt. And they're like, I will see if he plays. Even when Jimmy Butler was hurt, like, his butt was nearly broken after falling on the floor in Houston. And they're like, maybe. Like, they don't want him. I think Kerr in his mind is like, I don't want him. Get him out. I don't care. Now, does the front office agree with that? I have no idea. More than likely, they probably don't. Well, they definitely don't want to pay him a lot. I can tell you that right now. So he's like, this is what makes him my number 2 sign and trade candidate. Obviously, the Warriors need more, and you're gonna need more, especially if during the situation you lose out on a Gary Payton, you lose out on a Kevon Looney, you let go Pat Spencer, who had sparks in the playoffs, but obviously is probably not a real rotational player at this current moment. Not saying that he could never be. I just don't know. Now, if you're asking me which places, who do you want to see go where, who do you want to go on what team? In all honesty, I just want it to be exciting. I want it to be kind of funny. Like, could Jackson Hayes re-sign in LA? That would be hilarious. If you wanted me to tell you, okay, so let's talk about the players. Let's talk about the players that we just discussed right now. Miles Turner. Miles Turner, I would want to go back to Indianapolis. I think it makes the most sense for him. I don't think he should go anywhere else. He definitely shouldn't go to the Lakers. I can tell you that right now. They don't have the money. One. And two, I don't think anybody would like that except for Lakers fans. So I would want Miles Turner to go back to Indianapolis. They ride the storm. They just wait until Tyrese comes back. They're obviously going to be competitive in a strange East with no Tatum, no, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton. Joel Embiid probably playing 40 games this season at best. It's going to be a strange year. The Knicks still don't have a coach. I don't know. Brook Lopez. I would love to see Brook Lopez as a Warrior. Splash Mountain, obviously. Stanford guy. It's a pick that it's something that I've always wanted, so I have my obvious predisposition to wanting that to become the reality. So if you were laser to my head, where does Brook Lopez go? I would beg for it to be the Warriors. Now, is that realistic? Probably not. He's an aging player. He's probably not coming on for a minimum. I don't know what comes about with that. Chris Paul. Christopher Emmanuel Paul. Where do I want him to go? I think it would be interesting if he went back to the Spurs to help continue Wemby's development. I think he wants it. I think Wemby would probably want it. Especially because he'll be coming back from his injury. If it wasn't San Antonio, where would I want Chris Paul to go? You know, initially I would have said Cleveland. Because Cleveland would have been his best chance to come get a title, I think. Like, to just walk in and, like, compete for a title. And to take over the backup point guard role. But now that, because of a trade that we will discuss in a moment, because of a trade that had just happened, they kind of have that backup point guard now. there's no real need for Chris Paul to be there. Unless, of course, Chris Paul's willing to take a minimum just to ride Pine. But I don't think he wants to do that either. Ooh. Ooh. You know where Chris Paul could go? Interesting idea that just popped in my head. Dallas. Chris Paul to the Dallas Mavericks to fill in the role for Kyrie Irving as he tries to come back from his injury and just playing back into his Lob City role with Derek Lively. And just playing Lob City with the centers and helping to feed into AD, which he's not that kind of forward anyways. But I think that would be real interesting. I kind of dig that a lot. All right, so if I had a choice, Chris Paul to the Dallas Mavericks, that would be my selection. Russell Westbrook, I kind of went into detail. There's only two teams I would want Russell Westbrook to go to. Only two. Either to Denver to return back with Jokic and to continue to keep that core together. Core. It's 6 players and that's it on that team. Especially for the playoffs, you saw that pretty evidently. I would want to either see him go back to Denver or go back to Oklahoma City. Now, honestly, the chances of him going to Oklahoma City, especially while they're in this potential dynasty right now, is very small. I don't find it super realistic. And in all reality, I don't think it's going to happen. If anything like that were to happen with Russell Westbrook going back to Oklahoma City, it would be like one of those signs on for a 1-day deal to retire as a Thunder. That's the only thing I could imagine. So I would say Russell Westbrook to Denver. Al Horford. Al Horford's an interesting one. And I kind of have an interesting idea. What about Al Horford going back to Atlanta? Atlanta has been making some big, big money moves, which we will talk about when we start discussing the trades. I think that would be super interesting. You have Clint Capella, who's a free agent this year. Honestly, why wouldn't you just move off of that? Move off of Clint Capella, who is another older aging center, and kind of move over and bring back Al Horford with championship experience to come help lead this Hawks team to a potential deep run in the East. Especially with what we were talking about, where the East is going to be so weird and strange this year. You can convince me that with Al Horford, this is a top 4 team in Atlanta. They're definitely competing for the conference. Easily competing for the conference. So that would be my choice. Just rattle off some quick names here. Dorian Finney-Smith probably goes back to the Lakers. Dennis Schroeder, don't know. Don't really care. Josh Giddey, probably going back to the Bulls. Trey Mann's probably going back to his team. Jonathan Kuminga, my ideal dream. Now this is my dream. This dream that is impossible and will not happen. Sign Jonathan Kuminga for about $25 million. Trade him to Boston and get Derek Lively. That is the dream. That is the ultimate scenario in the world. Oh my goodness, that would be so incredible if that were to happen. Just move off of it. The Celtics the Celtics continue to make their money moves, and the Warriors can go back and compete for a championship again. Cam Thomas, I don't know. Who needs Cam Thomas? Well, a lot of teams need Cam Thomas, but who could I realistically see in like a sign and trade kind of scenario. Mm, honestly, the Warriors too. Okay, well now I've just been like, oh, we'll take all the good players. Yeah, it's difficult. You could make a case for Kaminga being actually you could make the case Kaminga being two sign and trades for each other. So Kaminga and Cam Thomas both signing, both being swapped would be super interesting. I don't think it's gonna happen. It's I would put money on it that it's not gonna happen. Otherwise, I don't know. I just want Cam Thomas to be happy. All right, and that will kind of wrap up our free agency talk for right now. Like I said, not a whole lot of big name stars gonna be in the mix. Both Morris twins are free agents. Seth Curry's a free agent. Seth Curry to the Warriors, not going to happen. I can tell you that right now. He's his own man, and I respect him for it. We respect Seth Curry in this household. But yeah, just a bunch of guys, just a bunch of rotation guys that are going to be moving around. So I'm not too concerned about going through like each and every single person that's in the free agency market. I'm not interested in where Thomas Bryant's going to go. I honestly don't care. But now, shifting over, let's give a small talk towards the trades that have happened so far in this offseason, or at least the ones that I find the most interesting. And we are back. All right. Took a moment to pause, get myself a drink, go to the bathroom, and to overall just reset myself after that long, lengthy conversation. Now we're going to go back into what I had originally discussed, which is going to be the offseason trades that have been made so far. And that's the very first trade, which we all know through the draft, and through the most recent trade, which was done yesterday between Utah and oh God, who was it? Anyways, we'll go through it right now. All right. So obviously, the very first trade that had come about once the season ended, Desmond Bain being traded. Well, not when the season ended, but you know what I mean. Desmond Bain being the first big trade to start things off. Obviously, everybody had lost their minds over this. Memphis had traded Desmond Bain to Orlando for Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and 5 first rounders. Now, to be fair, there was a swap in there as well. One of them was a swap. So it was very unfair to... And one of them was for this year. So it was very unfair for the way Schefter reported it to be like, oh, 5 first rounders, KCP, and Cole Anthony. It was more like, well, it was 16 this year, and then 26 is Phoenix's pick, and then there's 28 and 30, and then the 2029 one was a swap. So it was very unfair for that, the way that it came out. Honestly, though, I loved it. I loved the reactions from everybody, and everybody seemed to love this trade, kind of for both teams. Now, obviously, the whole media cycle blew up, and they were talking about how, oh, the next, the Ja Morant's gonna get traded. Jaren Jackson's gonna get shipped away to somewhere, Shanghai Sharks, who knows? But in all reality, you're kind of not necessarily waving the white flag, but you are saying, hey, we are not good enough. We have been running this team for the last few years. What has it gotten us? A 2 seed and not much else. For Orlando, this obviously gives them the shooting that they needed, have needed, will continue to need as they go into free agency. They should be getting as many people that can torch the ball from 28 feet as they possibly can. They should be getting as many 3-point shooters as they can get their grubby little mitts on down in the city of Orlando. Hire them. Bribe them. I don't care. Bring them to Orlando. Bring them to the promised land. Because Orlando is in this mix with Atlanta, New York, and the Cavaliers. And if you want to be generous and kind of not realistic, Philly. They're all in this weird mix for the East. If you are not doing everything in your power, every mean and asset that you, well, not every asset, but all of your means to push for this Eastern Conference, when will you ever? Do you care about basketball? There's no reason to look at the East this year and be like, we'll sit this one out. We're gonna tank. Like, there's no reason. It's so wide open. You're not guaranteed the fact that Cleveland's gonna be good in the playoffs. You're not guaranteed the fact that they're even gonna be healthy in the playoffs. New York still doesn't have a coach. They could be awful. They could suck. They could have to blow it up at the deadline. Indiana is the deepest team, but that entire team is predicated off the fact that it was built around Tyrese Halliburton. With no Tyrese Halliburton, we don't know. This team could be terrible, even if they brought back Miles Turner. Now, I don't think they will be, but they definitely won't be as strong as they were this year. Boston will be in the mix just for the sole fact that they have Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, and stuff. Maybe they bring back Al Horford. They probably won't, but maybe they do. Maybe some of their guys pop. Who knows? They could still be competitive and viable in the East. Maybe Anthony Simons becomes the Human Torch and averages 27. Who knows? Anything can happen. Now, that is a trade that we will be discussing later, but, well, actually, it'll be next, but we'll be discussing that in a second. Detroit's on the up and coming, but just like with every team, just because you make that next step and you go to the playoffs and you prove that you could be a legitimate team, doesn't mean that the next year you will take another step. They could be bad again. They could miss the playoffs or be a play-in team, but they could miss the playoffs. You're guaranteed nothing. So if you're Orlando and you have Paolo, you have Franz, you have you are still banking on the fact that hopefully Anthony Black comes into his own. But and then you still have Suggs on the team, but bringing in Desmond Bane does nothing but help in excruciating and incredible ways. He's kind of a player that you can rely on just to be what he has been the last 4 years. To be 40% on catch and shoot threes. That's who he is. That is what he is. And it's what you needed the most. Now, the haul that Memphis did get for this, and it is argued, like, is it really a haul? Because one of these picks is just for the sole fact of, can you just take Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? We don't want him anymore. Please just take him. Here's an extra first. That's, like, pretty evident. And then you have the fact of a couple of these picks got moved, which we will discuss later. But if you're Memphis, you are not rebuilding, because if you were rebuilding, you would trade Ja or you would trade Jared. Either way, You're not rebuilding, but you are confessing to the league, we are not it right now. We are not going to be a contender next year. And that's fine. You're in the West. Who is a contender? Everybody everybody's technically a contender when the season starts. But like obviously Utah's not in it. Obviously Phoenix is not going to be in it. I don't care what moves Phoenix makes for the rest of the offseason. They could get Miles Turner, Kuminga, and um, trade Bradley Beal as part of the sign and trade for Cam Thompson. I don't care. Cam Thomas, I don't care. So, with all that being said, I would say this was an incredible trade for Orlando and a good trade for Memphis. Things started to really heat up around, well, things really heated up when Kevin Durant got traded, which was the next trade that happened, which happened on 6/22, June 22nd. Phoenix traded Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green, number 10, which in the draft would become, this is a tough name, Kaman Malach. Do not kill me if I said that wrong. I more than likely did. I am so sorry. And then they also received the second rounder, which eventually, after all the second round trades, turned into Jemai Mashak. Again, please don't kill me for the name pronunciation. I will get it wrong. And then there's 4 other second rounders that they're going to get in the future. This was such an incredible deal by the Houston Rockets. It's unbelievable. It's honestly stupid that they got away with this. Now, I say get away with it. Everybody lowballed Phoenix. Everybody lowballed Phoenix. Miami was unwilling to give up Nikola Jovic. Like, they were unwilling to give up Jaime Hawkins. So, then you have, like, Toronto, who's like, we don't really want to give up anybody either. It's like, okay. Honestly, probably the reason why the Raptors front office man is not there anymore. However, this trade for Houston means so much. Alongside the fact that they just re-signed Jabari for the future. He is, I think Jabari is the only current player to have a contract that extends into 2031. I believe I was looking at that on Spotrac because I was looking to see who the farthest contracts were. And I think he is the only person, as of right now, obviously free agency is about to start. He's the only person that has a contract that will go into 2031, which is crazy to think about. If the league could not sign anybody and could not continue as it is, he would be the last player in the league. That's kind of crazy. But you didn't have to give him up in a trade. You didn't have to give up Amin Thompson in a trade. You didn't have to give up Reed Shepard in a trade. You didn't have to do a single thing other than Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green, who you were willing to give away for Kevin Durant, and picks. Because you just know you're going to be good next year. Now, I say know you're going to be good. Obviously, things happen. But it's more than likely that Houston will be a top 4 team standing in the West. More than likely. If I had to put it in right now, with my biases aside, because I have extreme biases, let it be known, no matter how fair or just I attempt to be, I have extreme biases to my Warriors, and I will continue to do so privately. But for here, I'll be more neutral, and I'll try to give people their flowers, and I'll try to be respectful and fair to everybody. If I were to just name the 4 teams that I think will be standing at the and into the conference semifinals, it would be OKC. It would be Minnesota. It would be Houston. And I'm thinking about a fourth. Who would be fourth? I would hate for it to be the Lakers. More than likely, it's the Clippers. Mavericks maybe. If that Chris Paul thing does happen, I would give it to the Mavericks. But if honestly, yeah, if Kyrie Irving comes back and he's about 80% of who he was, you could convince me that the Dallas Mavericks make a final push in the second half to become a Final Four team. I could say that. So OKC, Houston. Well, now I'm thinking about it. Okay, but I'm not going to do this thought exercise. We haven't even done free agency yet. The free agency hasn't even hit. So I'm not going to do this thought exercise right now. Let's just move on and continue talking about the Kevin Durant trade. So you have a player in Dylan Brooks that you're getting on if you're Phoenix. And this is if you want to give extreme benefit of the doubt to Phoenix that they could somehow right this ship that they're careening down. Dylan Brooks is a good player and a good asset. You can either keep him, and if you are able to find any help around Devin Booker, he's a good piece to have in the lineup, whether he's starting or coming right off the bench. He is a piece that will matter. Or you could take Dylan Brooks and flip him at the deadline to bring in either more talent or more picks or whatever have you and send Dylan Brooks to a semi-contender. Jalen Green. Jalen Green. He needs to learn who he is. And I don't mean that to be mean, but I just watched him as a Warriors fan in a playoff series, and I don't see it. I honestly don't. You could tell me anything. He could be this, he could be that, he's going to be great. I don't see it. I don't see it. He can be good. He can be really good in spots. He can be excellent in spots. But will he ever be great? I don't think so. And he is young. He is young. He could change my mind. I'm totally of the volition that you could change my mind at any time. I'd like to be open. I'd like to be willing to change my opinion on things. I just don't see it after this important playoff series where I saw other guys step up. I saw Sengun step up. I saw Fred VanVleet step up like he already does. I saw Amin Thompson step up in moments. I saw Dylan Brooks do his thing for a little bit, as much as I hate Dylan Brooks. But I didn't see it from Jalen Green. Even that one game where he killed the Warriors, I never saw it. So best of luck to him in Phoenix, who now has Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Jalen Green. That's fun. All right. Let's move on to some of the trades that happened right before the draft. You first had Boston trading Drew Holiday to Portland for Anthony Simons, as well as they received the 2032 second rounder, which is coming from New York, and then they received the 2031 second rounder, which is Portland's. And then following that quickly, just to kind of encompass these two things because they're both part of the same stream of logic, Boston sent Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta in a 3-team trade with Brooklyn. Atlanta received Kristaps and a second rounder. Boston received Georges Niang and a second rounder. And Brooklyn received Terrence Mann and Drake Powell. further confusing me on why Brooklyn took so many point guards in the draft when they had 5 first-round picks. The only team to ever have 5 first-round picks. But I digress. Um, these were obviously moves to move under the second apron. You lose Tatum for the year, more than likely. You have new ownership that's there and isn't probably keen on losing money straight away. And they saved, there was some cap guru that was talking about this. They saved like $250 million from making those two moves to move under the second apron. Which, thank the heavens for the fact that Portland was like, yeah, we'll take Drew Holiday. Why not? What else are we doing at this point? It's just so funny to see. But now Anthony Simons will be able to tear it up in the middle of Massachusetts, while Tatum is recovering, alongside of Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis goes to Atlanta, further fueling my idea that Kristaps Porzingis, or that Atlanta could be in the mix as a top four seed in the Eastern Conference this year, and could be easily vying for the conference championship against whoever, Orlando, New York, Cleveland, whoever. Another trade that happened right before the draft was kind of a sneaky one. Kind of one that people aren't really talking about at all. Washington traded Jordan Poole, former Warrior, and Sadiq Bey to New Orleans for CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and a future second. Now, if you're New Orleans, this does absolutely nothing for you. This is done probably zero, net zero to you as a franchise. Amongst the fact that you also lost the second round pick. I don't know if that's more like you swap Jordan Poole for CJ McCollum and then you're basically coupling Kelly Olynyk with a second rounder to take Sadiq Bey. I don't understand. I don't know. But if you're Washington and you have this up-and-coming team bringing in grown men who have been in the league for a long time, veterans of the game, CJ McCollum, who can still score, and Kelly Olynyk, who's just been around everywhere. I love this move for Washington. I love the fact that you're moving off of the Jordan Poole contract. It is the most empty 18 points a game that you can find in the NBA. And you are getting guys in the building that can help raise all your young talent that you have going on. I love it. It's honestly fantastic. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the trades that happened during the draft. And I have 3 of them that are very important to my heart specifically. We have... Oh, which one do I want to do first? There's one that I'm super passionate about. I'll do that one first just to get the air out of my lungs. So Memphis, after making the Desmond Bane deal, had all these picks. They decided to move up from number 16 to number 11. And here was the package. Memphis trades number 16 and the 2028 first rounder that they got from Orlando, along with 2 second rounders, to Portland to move up to number 11. Now, with the 16th pick, Portland took Yang, the center, the Chinese center, I believe. But Memphis took Cedric Howard. And immediately, I had all these preconceived notions in my head. I'm like, you can't draft a man on my basketball team with the name Coward in his name. I won't trust him in the key spots. Obviously poking fun. not serious to the kid at all. I'm sure he's going to have a great career. But then I did some digging because I love irony in hilarious situations more than anything. I wanted so badly for the draft comp of, so keep in mind I don't really know these kids outside of Dylan Harper, outside of Cooper Flagg, outside of like Trey Johnson. I don't really know these players kind of out. Once we got to pick 6, I was out basically. Once we got to Cedric Coward, who was mistakenly called Colin Coward on the ESPN broadcast, which was hilarious. I started doing some digging on him today. I started looking into him. 2 guard, which I already was like, this is hilarious. He just traded Desmond Bane. I wanted so badly for his draft comps to be Desmond Bane, so I started looking into them. And the very first one that I saw, draft comp, Kawhi Leonard. And I was like, that's aggressive. One of the greatest players to ever play in the NBA. That's pretty aggressive at number 11. And at first I didn't understand why. Because, again, he's a 2 guard. He's 6'6", 6'5", 6'6". And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So I started looking at another site. And they had him around Chris Middleton. And I was like, okay, that makes more sense of like a realistic comparison. I know that a lot of the draft networks, they will usually like say big names because nobody wants to be compared to like 2018. I don't want to throw anybody's name out there. Nobody wants to be compared to a mid-level player for their draft comp. So then I started doing some digging into what his like measurables were. And this guy is 6'6" with a 7'2" wingspan. And it all just clicked in my brain. The Kawhi Leonard comp and the Chris Middleton comp. He is a true D3 forward. And it all made so much sense. I am immediately in love. I am immediately in love with Cedric Coward. And I wish him all of the best in Memphis. I cannot get enough of a guy who has a 6-inch better wingspan than his height. That's insane to me. So, I have officially become Cedric Coward's number 1 fan. Take that information as you will. The next trade that kind of blew my mind was New Orleans had made a trade with Atlanta as New Orleans sent number 23 and a 2026 first rounder to Atlanta for number 13. So New Orleans moves up 10 spots. Atlanta moves down 10 spots. Atlanta would eventually take Asa Newell. And then New Orleans at number 13 would take Derek Queen. And if you want a true breakdown of how ridiculously stupid this trade was for New Orleans, go listen to the Bill Simmons podcast and his rant about this New Orleans trade, because it's legendary. To give you context on it, this 2026 first rounder that was given up by Joe Dumars from New Orleans to Atlanta is a most favorable pick between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Milwaukee Bucks, which is insane, especially considering that New Orleans is not a good team. And there's a huge chance that if Milwaukee's bad, 1, if they trade Giannis before the season starts, or 2, if they are bad and trade Giannis at the deadline, both of these options could be lottery teams. So you're just giving away a free lottery, what essentially would be a free lottery pick next year to move up 10 spots. Keep the pick. I don't understand it. I don't know why they made that move. I can't fathom it to you. Rant over. Rant over. This last trade from the draft was just kind of funny to me. Charlotte traded Mark Williams to Phoenix for the number 29 pick, which became Liam McNeely, and a second round pick that eventually turned into, this is a hard name, Vasilije Micic, I'm hoping it's pronounced, and a 2029 first rounder that is the least favorable between Cleveland, Utah, and Minnesota. Don't ask me how those teams are involved. The reason this is so funny to me is because Mark Williams, if you don't remember, or if you didn't know, Mark Williams was earlier at the deadline of this last season traded to the Lakers. And then when he came in for his physical, they kind of took one look at his back. If it was his back, we still don't know exactly. They kind of took one look at his physical, and they're like, we are rescinding our trade offer. And I'm just very confused if... Did Phoenix forget about that? Do they not care? I mean, it's obviously still pending. The trade hasn't gone through yet. It could still get rescinded by Phoenix. But I don't get it. What? This man was rejected in a trade less than 6 months ago because of what apparently is going on in his body. I understand Phoenix needs centers, which now you could argue Phoenix has a really good center now. But it just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why this trade happened. I don't know if Charlotte offered this or if Phoenix offered it. I think they're both not great front offices. So that just tickled me pink. And I just had to discuss it on here because I don't know if the Mark Williams situation with his back or whatever injury it was is resolved. I don't know if he's had surgery. I don't know anything. I don't know if it's fixed. It's probably not fixed in all reality. So we'll see how that works. 2 more trades before we get out of here today. First one's going to be a trade that happened 2 days ago. Where, and my heart feels for Kenny Beecham right now, and how this worked out. Chicago traded Lonzo Ball to Cleveland for Isaac Okoro. Like, straight up. And I understand that Lonzo Ball hasn't played in 2 years. You don't know what you're getting, essentially. But you could have got I believe Kenny Beecham's words were, you could have got a first rounder for him back a while ago. And instead you're trading him for Isaac Okoro. No offense to Isaac Okoro by any means, but this is the trade that I was talking about when I said I would have liked to see Chris Paul go to Cleveland, but now they have a backup point guard. I guess Lonzo Ball, especially considering that he has been injured for the last 2 years, it's not set in stone that they don't need another point guard kind of around the area. But if Lonzo Ball is himself and healthy and able to perform as he had before, they have their backup point guard. And then the last trade that I had, this one came in yesterday, actually. Utah is making a trade to send Colin Sexton and a second rounder, which is the least favorable between the Clippers and Utah, for Jusuf Nurkic. Now, this is real interesting because obviously the guard room for Utah was getting pretty crowded. You needed to move off of one of those guys. But bringing in Yusuf Nurkic just seems strange in every possible way. Like, why would you bring Yusuf Nurkic when you have guys like Walker Kessler already on the team that are kind of waiting in the wings? Not waiting in the wings, but that are already there. It leads me to believe, and this is also fueled again by the Bill Simmons podcast, shout out, and things that he was kind of conspirating about, that Utah may be part of a bigger, not conspiracy, I almost said conspiracy, oh my God. But Utah maybe knows something that we don't know. Maybe this is with LeBron James opting into his contract. This is what Bill Simmons was kind of tinkering around with on the trade machine. That you bring in Yusuf Nurkic to have your center or your backup center, whichever. You then move Walker Kessler, who the Lakers have wanted for 2 years, to the Lakers. Utah takes on bad contracts, and LeBron goes back to Cleveland in a 3-team trade, which would be insane considering the ramifications of that kind of trade. But in all honesty, I don't see why not. I mean, obviously LeBron probably wants to go back, have a swan song, lead Cleveland to another championship. The Lakers need a center to pair with Luka. This makes the most sense. And then Utah will take bad contracts as Utah does. Thank you, Danny Ainge. And then whatever Cleveland sends back probably goes to in a mix between the Lakers and the Utah Jazz. But it just seems so strange. If that's not what's happening, then I don't understand this trade. Why bring in Yusuf Nurkic? It just doesn't make any sense if it's not part of some greater plan that's going on behind the scenes. But hey, the league is weird. The offseason is weird. And we're all a little weird. Thank you so much for tuning back in. Thank you for listening to me rant for over an hour. It's good to get the vocal cords working again. This should come out at around 3 when the discussions start happening, if not a little bit later, like I had said earlier. But I will be posting this just in time, basically, for all of the discussion that comes out. And then I hope that we get some real interesting stuff. And then, like I said earlier, it is a lower end free agency class, so I don't imagine the signings themselves will be interesting. But I think the sign and trade possibilities, as well as other trades that are going to, I think the trades are going to outweigh the signings in this free agency period. I think the money moving around will be the most impactful part of this early free agency period and the finalization of earlier trades that we had kind of discussed. But that's all I have for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you guys around.